Hello and welcome to my X-Men God Loves Man Kills book talk. Uh, X-Men God Loves Man Kills is one of the most notorious X-Men story arcs. The story was created during the rise of televangelists and includes a unique villain. Rather than a superpowered mutant enemy, the X-Men find themselves quarreling with a man named Reverend Stryker and his group of cultists in their attempt to rid the world of mutants in the name of God. The story covers important themes popularized by Chris Claremont, such as prejudice against minorities and parallels to events surrounding the civil rights movement. The team featured acts like a family and features the team of X-Men that Chris Claremont created for the Uncanny X-Men stories. And as you can see in the image there, it's Charles Xavier, Storm, Colossus, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Cyclops, and Kitty Pryde. Because you exist, in one of the most memorable moments of the story, as Scott begs for a reason behind his and Storm's torture, Stryker responds with, "Because you exist, and that existence is an affront to the Lord." I understand that it is said that Stan Lee, although writing the original stories with the themes surrounding the civil rights movement, stated that the stories were not directly inspired by those events. Those stories that he created weren't incredibly popular until the Uncanny X-Men, where those themes were established more so in depth and became a crucial part of the X-Men story. This shows minorities being targeted just for their existence. It also talks about how certain groups rely on vertical morality to excuse their hateful behavior because they believe it's what someone from above wants. This usage of vertical morality has existed for a long time and remains present today to excuse hate towards groups of minorities. As you can see in the panel, although it's blurry, it says, "Because you exist, and that existence is an affront to the Lord." Some parallels between activists. Chris Claremont is known for improving the original X-Men story by going more into depth with these characters and plot points. One notable change he made that's evident throughout the story is the different approaches to activism. A small element throughout the story, although present the entire time, was the doubt amongst these members of the X-Men when it came to knowing they were approaching equal rights the right way. Towards the end, Charles himself doubted if his approach was best, after being brainwashed into attacking every mutant in the world with his ability. Many people have noted that Magneto approaches activism in a similar way to Malcolm X, and Xavier approaches it with peace, like Martin Luther King Jr. Claremont stated that these observations are valid ones to make, although not exactly the two real world figures he intended to base them off of. And as you can see in the panel, Charles is saying, "I swore long ago that I would see no more X-Men die. If Magneto's is the only means to that end, then so be it." And Cyclops is responding, "I won't accept that. Granted, times are tough for us, and they'll probably get a lot worse. Granted, we probably could conquer the world, though the cost in blood would be staggering." Some dangerous rhetoric. Stryker, in a live debate with Charles Xavier, made sure that people understood the classification of mutants was Homo superior rather than Homo sapien. This distinction, although seemingly minor, makes a huge difference. If mutants aren't classified as humans, they won't have rights within the United States. Wolverine makes that clear to the audience and the fellow members of the X-Men. This mirrors events that occurred around the time of the Civil Rights Movement. One particular instance is the case of the Dred Scott decision. Dred Scott could not sue for his freedom because he wasn't a citizen and didn't have rights. Rather, the courts declared he was classified as property and not human. And then, when Stryker's been confronted, he's told that they're just as much human as anyone else. And Stryker is saying, like, "Human? You dare call that thing human?" And he points towards Nightcrawler, who, of course, kind of resembles a demon. My review, I personally love this story. I haven't really read much X-Men before, but I've seen so much from the shows and movies created from the intellectual property. The parallels between the X-Men and how minorities are treated are incredibly important for the story. This is for sure my favorite example of this because of the strong themes and references from the real world. X-Men God Loves Man Kills might even be up there with one of my favorite comic books. At minimum, it's caused me to want to read more of Claremont's run. I'd like to call back to the beginning of the semester and the discussion involving what a comic is and how it's so much more than something for children. If I encounter anyone with that belief, I know now to point them to this story to show how, despite being filled with pictures, comics can do what any art form and piece of literature can by conveying an important message and making the consumer think. In conclusion, Claremont's take on the X-Men shaped what it is today because of his method of shaping the characters and expanding on the themes within the stories. The X-Men can be a notable piece of literature, when looking into the civil rights activism, even if it doesn't discuss any particular minority, but instead creates a new one to act as a parallel. The messages and themes within X-Men God Loves, Man Kills have to do with vertical morality and the prejudice against others because of how they look or because people are afraid of them. It's an interesting take on these themes, and it's also the best example of them and how they affect mutants without bringing in the topic of the threat posed by the Sentinels. This panel here takes place after Stryker's group of people called Purifiers killed a couple of children because they were mutants. They like put them on display on the swings here and wrote like muties there, and Magneto's picking them up and started declaring that he'd go to war with Stryker, which again shows the different types of activism. These are the references I used when talking about vertical morality. The book itself, um, an unfortunate Republican 10 years ago thinking that the Dred Scott decision still applies. Professor X and Magneto and who they were based off of, and then a TV tropes like summary for the book. Thank you for watching.